Um, so, do we have anybody, we have a couple of people here post-transplant. If you are here and you have already had a transplant, the first 20-ish minutes here, 25 minutes are for you guys. Donnie, who is in the back, you can follow him out just to the room next door, and it's time, you don't need to be in here to hear about how to find a donor because you already have your kidney. It's time for you guys just to connect and be able to talk and support each other. So if you are post-transplant, or Diane, even a post-transplant spouse, if you want, you guys can go ahead and go, and then please be back in here by 7.
Watch the clock.
How are you? Good.
Well, there they go. Yay, Elena. Okay. Couple quick announcements, and then we'll get started with our program for tonight. So our next seminar, well, no, we're going to talk to you a little bit about, we had a couple people do this tonight. Kathy did, Sydney did, and we grabbed Diana, who wasn't prepared, but she did a great job. We are, with the Cincinnati seminars, we are offering recording you having a conversation, basically with me, just talking about what's been going on, what it's like to be waiting for a kidney, what's it like to be on dialysis if you're on dialysis. Again, just talking so that we can record these and use them on your social media pages. I'm sure many of you are familiar that reels and videos and clips and things like that, people like to watch those. And so we know it's often hard to do this on your own. So you have an opportunity when we send out the invite for the seminar, you have an opportunity to sign up, come at 5:30, and then we're doing the recordings. And then our wonderful team at Off the List, that does not include me because I don't know how to do that kind of stuff. They take all this content and edit it, and put graphics on it, and make it amazing to then put on your pages, okay? So I encourage you to take advantage of that, because then you don't have to worry about trying to figure out how to record or feel uncomfortable. I literally am just gonna sit across from you and we're gonna have a conversation, okay? All right, were there any other announcements were we just gonna announce?
I think it was just that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then our upcoming seminars 2 weeks from tonight will be in Northern Kentucky, talking about the importance of self-advocacy. Anyone is welcome. You can go to Northern Kentucky, you can come here, you can go to both, you can do whatever you want, all right? In 2026, we are gonna be in Northern Kentucky every month. So we'll be in Cincinnati the first Thursday of the month, we'll be in Northern Kentucky the third Thursday of the month, all right? And again, you'll be getting those, the emails from us, etc., so that you have those dates on your calendar. All right, okay, and I think everyone in here I have met, but just in case you don't know, I'm Darcy, and I'm glad that you guys are all here. So let's start. Tonight we're going to talk about the realities of the kidney transplant journey, all right? What I call this is kind of you guys go to the transplant centers and you probably left with binders upon binders of all of this information about, Terry's nodding his head, like, here you go. These are all the things that you have to know. Here are all the things you're going to have to do. And I remember when my dad got that binder and binders, and we were like, what do we do with all of this? Like, what's important, what's not important? It's all important, but what do we really need to know to get through certain parts of this? So the realities of the journey that we're going to talk about tonight is really kind of born out of that. Let's try to take away some of just a ton of the information and really hone in on what are some of these things that are going to be a part of this no matter what. Okay, it's a reality that maybe the transplant team doesn't talk about, but we know there are things that are real that we just need to be aware of as we go through this. I promise you, the more that we're aware and the more that we're educated, the easier it's going to be to ride some of the waves and the ups and downs of this. And everybody in this room already knows the ups and downs. And so they're there no matter what. So let's talk about the first reality is that there are gonna be a lot of emotions as you go through this process, all right? In any given day, you might feel hopeful. The next hour, you might feel disappointed. The next hour, you might feel like you got some kind of news that got you excited. And by the end of the day, you might be like, well, no, that's a done deal now. And just in that one day, you have done this, okay? What you need to know is that that's normal. It is normal to feel like that. And part of the reason that we want you here, and we're gonna give you time at the end of the night to connect with others, is so that you know that you're not alone. It's normal to feel like that. You're going to feel lots of different emotions as you go through this. Is there anybody in here that hasn't felt one of these? Would everybody agree that you feel all of these things, and sometimes, many times, even a day? Yeah, okay. Okay, second reality, let's talk a little bit about the transplant centers, okay? Let's talk about the coordinators. This can get very confusing for people. If you are waiting for a kidney, you have been assigned a coordinator, all right? That is your coordinator who is calling you when they need you to do labs. They're calling you if they need a test updated. Maybe they're calling you to say, hey, we have a kidney donor for you, right? That person is your direct link to the transplant center. That's your coordinator. They are going to have, on the other side, potential donors have their own coordinator, all right? So that's not your coordinator. That's a separate person that anybody who's interested in going through the testing process, that's who they're gonna call. Two different people, all right? Your coordinator, if you look at the box under the U, your coordinator has no idea whether or not potential donors have stepped up. Because potential donors are not calling your coordinator, right? Who are they calling? The living donor coordinator, right? And they are not communicating that to each other, and that's intentional. So that there is no conflict of interest that happens there, even within the transplant team. So when you talk to your coordinator and you're like, well, hey, has anybody stepped up to test for me? They don't know. I mean, they're not gonna tell you anyway, but they really legit don't know, all right? And then you are not gonna call like your living donor coordinator to say, hey, what test do I need to do? Again, that person is just gonna be working with potential donors. All right, so just kind of keep in mind, you're gonna know who both of those people are, and the name and number that we're really concerned about is the living donor coordinator, right? That's what we're pushing out when we're sharing the story, because that's who we want people to call. But your coordinator is your central person that you're gonna call when you need things, right? Okay, so we kind of understand how that works within the transplant center. Now let's talk about the realities of communication, all right? Here's the deal. You are not gonna get regular calls from your coordinator. And I know that that is extremely frustrating. And it's I think, one of the biggest areas in this whole kidney transplant process that could be vastly improved, okay? That communication between you guys and the transplant teams. The reality is that if they don't need anything, you're not gonna hear from them, all right? It doesn't mean they have forgotten about you. It doesn't mean that they don't care. It just, if they don't have a reason to need to reach out to you, they're not going to, all right? That's not, they're medical people, and that's what they're focused on. So you're not gonna get like a nice little text like you might get from somebody off the list saying, how's your week been? It's just not their job. It's not within their role. Their role is really the medical piece, and that's where their attention's gonna be. So you will hear from them if they need a test done. You will hear from them if lab work needs to be updated. And they are the person that will call you when you have a kidney, when you have a donor, all right? But beyond that, you're probably not gonna have a whole lot of communication with them, and that's normal, even though we may not love it. Can you go back just real quick? However, that last bullet point is important. You guys have every right to call or email or reach out to your coordinator. So even though they're not reaching out to you, don't take that as well, I can't communicate with them. You absolutely can and you should, all right? Do I think that you should send your coordinator an email every day? No. Like, I don't think you want to be that much on their radar, all right? However, I do think it's very fair, especially if you've been kind of gone through a little time period and you're like, I haven't heard anything. It is okay for you to call and say, and we'll give you a couple questions here in a little bit that might just prompt you to think of what you might want to ask, but you have every right, and I'm giving you permission to reach out to the coordinator, okay? Don't sit in the dark if you're frustrated and you haven't heard anything. Okay, here's the other part about the transplant teams and the coordinators. They can't tell you. They cannot tell you where a living donor is in the process. They cannot tell you if people have called to test for you. They will pretty much not tell you anything, all right? That is because of HIPAA. I don't understand. To me, HIPAA is, I would call, Sydney, and I would say, Sydney, these 4 people and their birth dates reached out to test for you. Okay, that to me is HIPAA. I don't understand why they can't say to you, Sydney, you know what, the phone's been ringing a lot, keep doing what you're doing. That, they tell me, is HIPAA violation, okay? It really is not. However, that's the way that they function, and so we just have to be aware of that. And I will tell you, it was the most frustrating part of the kidney search when I did this for my dad. I mean, I just about lost my cool a couple times, and I was pretty level-headed throughout his search. But to not be able to get any feedback on was anything working was really frustrating. I finally one day, I don't know how, got somebody to break down, and they said to me, all we can tell you is it's working, keep doing what you're doing. And I said, that's all I wanted to know. That's all I wanted to know. That gave me enough hope, it gave me enough motivation to keep doing it, get up the next day and do it, all right? But just be aware, it's not you. I promise they're not like, oh, Terry wants to know, and we're just not gonna tell Terry, but we're gonna tell Lori. It's just kind of, and maybe you'll get lucky and get little nuggets, but we don't always get lucky and get nuggets. So just be aware of that, okay? That's a reality, and it's a hard one, a really hard one. All right, here's another reality. The more you share, the more likely you are to find a donor. If you don't share, donors don't fall out of the sky. All right, we don't have people lined up outside the church saying, okay, hook us, match us up with somebody, right? So if we don't talk, if we don't share, if we don't go through everything that we're guiding you through in our program, then it's gonna be pretty difficult to find a donor. That's just the reality, all right? We have to share. We know it can be hard to share, and that's why we're here. It's exactly why we're here, is to help walk you through getting you comfortable doing it, giving you strategies to do it, and then giving you the actual tools to do that. Because the bottom line is we have to share, all right? That's just a reality. Okay. Ups and downs. We talked a little bit about the emotions, right? Some of the feelings, some of the things, these are gonna happen. These are gonna be realities, and I just want you to hear that it's not you, all right, when we talk about these. You might have a really close friend, a family member, not reach out to you. Maybe you send them a letter, maybe you reach out by text, maybe you invite them to follow your social media page and all you get is silence. That hurts, and it hurts a lot, okay? Here's what is often happening in the person that's hearing this information. Many times they're in denial. They might be angry. They might be fearful because they're thinking, what does this all mean? Okay? And it's not anything that you're doing. It's not like you've done something wrong by sharing. We can't control and we can't change the people that are receiving the information. All we can do is keep sharing, all right? And I know that's a really, really hard thing. I experienced it. I know from looking at some of the faces in this room, we've talked about this on calls before. This is a really hard piece of this, but what I want you to not do is I don't want you to stop sharing, because you're not doing anything wrong. We have to give people time and space to process and come to grips with the information they're receiving. We don't want to stop sharing, okay? That's the bottom line. We just have to keep doing it. All right, here's a reality. Many need to step up. And what this means is that it often takes a number of people to step up and begin the testing process before you get that approved donor. What is the number one concern of the transplant team when somebody says, I want to see if I can be a donor? What's the most important thing that they're assessing? Their long-term health, right? They are checking to make sure as much as they can, right? They're not God, but they're doing as good of a job as they can of saying, is this person healthy enough to donate a kidney and then live themselves a full healthy life with one kidney, all right? So knowing that means that there are going to be people that are going to step up that want to be a donor, but they're going to be told no, right? Because their health is of most importance. That's why one person steps up. It's unlikely that that first person that steps up is going to be the donor. We've had it actually happen once. We have had it happen once. But this is a reality that we need lots of people to make that call, because people are going to get disqualified medically. People are going to start the testing process, and guess what? They're not going to finish it, okay? Something may change, they may change their mind, they may say, I'm not sure about this. So the bottom line is we have to keep sharing. And many of you know, because you've heard me say this, we have to share until the kidney is literally in your body, right? It's just the reality of the way that it works. So just keep in mind, don't get discouraged if you're like, oh, my whole family and 5 other people have already stepped up and that's it. There can't possibly be a donor. I'm here to tell you that we had 6, 7 people that made it all the way to the end of testing for my dad and got disqualified. And we were like, is this ever gonna happen, right? We just kept sharing, we kept sharing, we kept sharing, and it did happen. We ended up with 2 donors approved at almost the same time, right? But it's hard when you keep getting the no or somebody gets disqualified. But just know it's numbers. We just have to keep getting people to call, because there are plenty of people out there that are healthy enough to donate, okay? Here's another reality, is that the evaluation process of a potential donor can take time, all right? It can take weeks to months. Somebody might have started testing back in September, and they might have just found out that they were approved in January, all right? It was a 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6-month process. It's hard to say. So just kind of, remember how you guys went through all of your testing, right? That took time. It takes time for a donor too. Their testing's a little bit different, but it takes time. And again, they have to make sure, that transplant team has to make sure that they don't have any hesitations or any concerns. So that can be a process. So what do we do if somebody is going through testing and we know that they're going through testing? Do we stop sharing and say, we're gonna wait and see what happens with that person? No. We're gonna keep on sharing. We're gonna keep on doing everything. Maybe that person gets through, but if they don't, we don't wanna lose any time. So we're just gonna keep doing what we know to do and let the medical team take care of that whole testing process. Because remember, we're probably not gonna even know what's going on. We're not gonna know what is happening with that donor. We might not even know there is a donor, okay? All right, and then remember too, and I'm not gonna put her on the spot, there's a living donor in here tonight that is going to be sharing in the future. She came tonight just so she could kind of see what we're all about and what we're doing tonight. But, the evaluation process or that testing process for a potential living donor can be stressful, right? We don't know, they're taking time off of work to go test, or maybe they go and do a test and somebody says, we actually found something that's going on with you, right? There's something medical you need to deal with. It can be kind of a stressful time. And so we want to be really careful on the other side that if we know somebody's going through testing, we're not saying, hey, Hildy, how'd your appointment go today? Hildy, what's the update on your blood work? Hildy, how'd your CT scan go? Because if that person is already feeling like a little bit nervous, we will push them as far, I mean, they'll be done, okay? So we just have to be really careful of that. If you do know somebody's testing, my encouragement is always, don't say anything, let them share if they want to share. And if they don't share, then they don't have anything they want you to know yet, or they're trying to work through something, okay? Okay, this is our last reality. Match does not equal donor. Okay, here's the deal. If somebody is a match, they share your blood type, and they're compatible with your tissue type, and you don't have antibodies that are fighting each other. Okay, that's a match. The blood work shows that, all right? The transplant team can look at that blood work for a potential donor and they can say, they're a good match to the blood, they're a good match to the tissue type, and there aren't antibodies. There's a lot they look at, all right? Match does not mean that person has been approved and can donate a kidney. Nobody is approved to donate a kidney until they have gone through all of the testing, met with the social worker, met with the surgeon, and the transplant team gathers and makes a decision. That's when there's an approved donor. We have to be really, really careful when people start saying, I have a match, or somebody calls Megan and they're like, Megan, I went and I called Christ Hospital and I filled out the paperwork and I did the blood work and I'm a match, I'm your donor. They're not a donor yet. Because remember, there are gonna be a lot of people that go through that testing and there's gonna be something that pops up. Here's my example I always share. There was a woman who, she wasn't testing for my dad. I was actually going through the testing process myself, and I was down at the transplant center, and they had just had this woman who had come. She was going through the testing. She was like killing it, right? Marathon runner, nutrition. I mean, like when you looked at her, like everyone was like, oh my gosh, she's clearly healthy enough to be a donor. She finished all the testing. They called her and they said, we're really sorry to tell you you've been disqualified. She's like, well, what do you mean I'm disqualified? Your CT scan showed that you only have one kidney. You can't donate because you need that one kidney, right? Never would this woman have probably ever known that she only had one kidney. Because again, we can live a full healthy life on one kidney, but she couldn't be approved, right? So we just have to be really, really careful when you hear somebody say, oh, I'm a match for you, I'm gonna be your donor. Like, no, not until they've gone through all of the testing. And if somebody does tell you, hey John, like I just found out like I'm a match for you, we do not want to tell the world that. Because when you start telling the world that you have a match, the world thinks that means you have a donor. And then what happens? No more sharing. And do you think people make that phone call? No, because they're like, John's all taken care of. Well, John may or may not be taken care of, okay? So I hate these two words. I hate the word match because it doesn't, when you hear match, you think, I've got it, right? But it's not the case. So just our magic word is an approved donor. That means they now can go into the OR and they can take their kidney. That's what approved means. They've passed all the testing, okay? And just kind of try to keep those two words separate in your mind. And match is great, but match is, yeah, okay. Either the kidney can go directly to you or maybe it goes through the paired exchange. Like it's not a big deal. We're looking for approved. We're looking for somebody that is healthy enough to donate a kidney, whether or not they're direct or they're through a paired exchange. The end result is gonna be the same. You're gonna get a kidney. Just a little different path, okay? All right, oh, it's 6:59. Okay, like 2 minutes then, like questions on any of this. Question? Yes, Hildy, just talk loud.
Okay, I'm always confused. You use the term coordinator, and when you go down there, there's two different people. So maybe one's a nurse and one's a social worker, and you.
Yeah, So there are nurses and there are social workers, but there are designated like transplant coordinators. And like at Christ, those are people like Brandon, people like Sharon, Patrick. I'm trying to think of the other. Shatika. Is that right? Shatika. Yeah. Like those are transplant coordinators. Then I'm just using the example at Christ. Then you've got social workers that are like Amy White and Robert Jaspers. Then you've got nurses, Becky Parks and some other names in there. So it does get complicated. But the primary person, if you're like, is that coordinator who is gonna be, they're gonna be the ones that call to say, you gotta do this, and then maybe you have to coordinate it through the nurse. But it's ultimately gonna come from them. Yeah, it's a good question though. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of moving parts. But I always say, try not to worry about the moving parts and just always go to that coordinator, that person you met with at the very beginning, who kind of started you through the process. And then at UC, it's obviously a different group of people. But most of the transplant centers are all structured a similar way with that. Any other questions or comments or anything? No, you guys good? Okay. All right, well we didn't put the numbers in the jars, but that's okay. We can just do because we can go ahead and start moving people, and then maybe, Lori, maybe give them well, it's 6:59 on the clock, so Johnny probably thinks he has another minute. But what we're gonna do now is just take like 2 minutes. We're gonna ask, once they come back in, we're gonna have our guests come up and share a little bit about their journey and answer some questions. And then we'll do our transplant circles, which is where we split up and you get to connect with other people that are waiting for a kidney, or you get to connect with other kidney donor champions. So what we're gonna ask is that if you are waiting for a kidney, if you will move to one of these 3 tables. If you are a kidney donor champion or support person, one of these 3 tables. So if everybody could just kind of take 2 minutes and move, and then
Where do we go?
recipients are on this side. Yeah. And then you guys can just kind of pop in once we start the circles. So, and Stacy, you can go whichever way you want to go.
This is champion side.
You want to do this one? And her daughter, Elena, can you just wave your hand? Yay. So I'm not going to take any thunder out of their story, but they are off the list family graduates, post-transplant, and this is the first, this is the first time actually that we've seen them. That's the hardest part of our job at Off the List, is that you guys get your kidneys, and then we know you have to like kind of stay away for a little while, but we don't like it because we're like, well, how are they? We haven't seen them. So we love it when they start when you guys start coming back. So I'm just gonna let Jeannie share a little bit about their story, their journey, things they did. Jeannie was the primary kidney donor champion along with a couple other people on their team. But anyway, I'm just gonna turn it over to you.
Okay, you're welcome. So I'm a little nervous, but that's okay. So my daughter says I'm a loser, put that down. So our journey started kind of out of the blue. We were at a doctor's appointment for something totally unrelated, and Elena's numbers in her urine and her blood work came back with high blood pressure, proteinuria in urine, high creatinine, and she was 14. And she's adopted from Guatemala. She's been home with us since she was 10 months old. So we really, we were thrown for a loop. We didn't have a lot of medical history. So they immediately sent us to Children's at that point in time. And, there was a great doctor there who was head of nephrology who, had us do genetic testing and all kinds of different tests to try biopsies to see what the root cause was. And nothing could ever say what caused it. So also nothing could really treat it. So he, managed her symptoms for a while until her GFR was getting pretty low, and they transferred us to the Kidney and Hypertension Center. And they were gonna prepare us for an eventual transplant. And I remember the first appointment at the Kidney and Hypertension Center, we saw Darcy's flyer on the window. So I took a screenshot of it and called immediately when we got home. And if I hadn't done that, I don't know if we would be where we are today, because you don't know what to do. You don't even know where to start. And so with her team and her, we were able to, they did this whole social media for us. They, we did the signs and we did the flyers, and they were able to get us in touch with Liz Bonus. We were able to get on TV. Just getting that word out there, really was such a big help. Eventually, she needed to, they really had to step up. They didn't want her being as young as she was. So from 14 till about 19, almost 20, she was managing it. She was still active. She played soccer. She was a normal, healthy looking. It's like you wouldn't know by looking at her that she was as sick as she was. But when she was about 19, almost 20, they really had to step it up because her numbers were going down, and she's a teenager, so she was working full time. She'd come home and fall asleep on the couch till dinner, then go back to sleep until bedtime, then go to bed. So it's like a lot of her lack of energy I kind of would put off to just being a teenager, but she definitely wasn't doing what normal 20-year-olds were doing. So, I forgot what I was gonna say. So, we really had to step it up, and you're not supposed to know. Nobody is going to tell you, like Darcy just said, you're not going to know how many people are, getting tested. But if you have somebody who doesn't like to keep a secret, like her donor, he did let us know. So, I worked at a company for 25 years, very small company. Family worked there, we knew everybody. All of them were there when I, was adopting Elena, and when we brought her home. And Elena also started working there right out of high school. So she also knew these people. And her donor ended up, after a long process, ended up being her coworker, who, he's a 35-year-old man. I've known him since he was 15. She's known him since she was here, or, came home. And his uncle and his dad all worked there. They're, our work buddies. So he said, hey, Elena, I'm the same blood type as you, and I'm gonna go get tested. So, we had a little bit of, we didn't really know anybody else, unless they were like good friends who said, we're gonna call. We didn't really know how the process was going, but he liked to keep her informed. So, he ran into some bumps along the way. He had some of his own health issues that, basically it was go get checked out by your doctor and see if it's okay to donate. So, it was basically something small for him, a lifestyle change that, he had to make. But that was a roller coaster, the up and down of, oh, he's this far in the process, but oh no, he's hit this bump, so that was tough, and that is one of the things, it's like a roller coaster. So he was able to, power through that and was cleared, and Elena and him are both FC Cincinnati season ticket holders, so they decided, I think he was approved finally for the very end in August, and they said, let's wait until after the FC season's over. So, luckily, she did avoid the dialysis route. She didn't have to do any of that. She was healthy, and they were like, that's fine, we'll schedule it. So, after that. So, October 21st, she had her transplant. And I think one of the things that you think, oh, she's got her kidney, everything's gonna be great. Well, it's not always that way. Now, in the long run, everything has, turned out fine, but she hit some hiccups in her path. You know, her numbers started out okay, but every time, you know, you go to the clinic, Donnie and I were just talking about this, you know, you're at the clinic 3 days a week at least, and, you know, you're there from 6:45 in the morning and waiting for your, you know, blood tests and results to come back. And every day that we were there, her creatinine level just kind of kept climbing and climbing. And they thought, you know, they bring up rejection, they bring up all these other things that it could be. So, you know, another roller coaster, you know, so you're not out of the woods. Not that we would change anything, but, you know, it was tough. It ended up that they think it was a kidney stone, possibly, that came over with the donor kidney. They really didn't see that on his, you know, his tests, but, you know, there was a shadow they said could have been the beginning of that. So the kidney stone was blocking any drainage, so the new kidney was swollen. They ended up having to put in a nephrostomy tube over Thanksgiving. So she was, you know, 1 month out and she's already, you know, back in the hospital with this. And they left it in there for probably about 6 weeks, wouldn't you say? Yeah. And you think so? It felt like it. But, you know, they wanted to make sure they protected the kidney first and foremost. And so then, you know, she'd go back because it was kinked and it wasn't draining, or they had to put a new one in. You know, it just felt like we were there, you know, all the time. And she was just so ready to, you know, be past that. But, you know, luckily once they took it out, it seemed like everything was in the clear, and her numbers started coming back down, everything was good. So, sorry, that's my pump. I'm like, I knew that was gonna happen. So, you know, the road for us, she was healthy, she wasn't on dialysis, she continued to do a lot of the things that she liked to do, like the FC games, and even when she was first diagnosed, she took a 6-month sabbatical and went to Utah, and, you know, we climbed the top of, you know, the arches out there, you know, and here I am huffing and puffing up, and she's up the top, yay, come on, you know. So, like I said, you would not know that she was sick. And I think for us, that was probably good during our whole process, to have her healthy, and, you know, because she was young, we knew we'd find someone, there'd be success, she would, you know, could live a nice long life with hopefully this one, maybe, you know, who knows, you know, could last 20 years, hopefully, knock on wood. But having her healthy made our journey a lot easier than a lot of people, and I understand that. I feel like I did get discouraged. I always told her, see, I feel like I'm not doing enough as her mother, you know. It's like you just constantly want to be doing something that's going to get, you know, more attention for her. But you know, whatever we did, you know, here he was sitting in the next office over, so you just don't know. You know, we did the airport, you know, baggage claim signs all the way in Baltimore, so we didn't get to see it though, so that was good. But you know, it's always a journey. You don't know if there's going to be bumps in the road, but you know, we wouldn't, her dad always said to her, no, Elena, even with all this, with the nephrostomy bag, you wouldn't have changed, you wouldn't have said no to that kidney. It's just one more hurdle, and, you know, you get on with it, and you know, you're gonna be a healthy, normal person from here on out, so,
From your seat.
yeah, you don't have to speak into the microphone. We've gotten very close, let me tell you. Closer than
I think the only thing I would say was when, like my mom said, I wouldn't have changed anything. I'm grateful for my bud. Now we say we're kidney buddies, so got a keychain, a cool shirt. But honestly, at the beginning, it was fine. I thought it was perfectly fine. But once this like kidney stone happened or whatever, I started honestly kind of giving up hope at that point. I was kind of done. I didn't want to do it anymore. I was frustrated, obviously, what a 20-year-old would be. But now I'm kind of just living life and doing things I want to do, go play soccer again, so that's about it.
And what else is on your bucket? What else were those things you told me when I get a new kidney?
Play soccer again, go to FC games, get a house, trying to get myself my own house with my boyfriend, and just travel the world.
It was another trip to Utah, right?
And another trip to
Yeah.
Utah. I'd go out to Utah again.
I feel like we need to let FC Cincinnati know.
So that's funny because, the last game before didn't she forget any of this, right? Okay, the last game before the surgery was like on that Saturday, I think, before her Tuesday surgery. And I did send an email to them and I said I told them the story. And so they were at the game and I never had heard anything, but at the game on the big Jumbotron, they just said, good luck, Elena and Nick, put their names up there, so. Yeah, congratulations and good luck on your, so we got a screenshot of that, so, so that was nice, so, but, yeah, it was cool, so.
So Elena, what advice would you give people in this room waiting for a kidney?
I would just say, don't give up.
Yeah.
There's someone out there for you. It might take longer than you thought. Might take less, but just don't give up. Just keep hoping and praying. That's all I got.
Yeah. I mean, just like she said, you just keep sharing. I mean, we picked a kidney champion that was, I said, she's my best friend since first grade, so we've known each other forever. But she has more friends than anybody. I'm like, you're gonna be the champion and you're gonna put every post out there and, as far as you can, and we tried to see, how far it would travel, try to do some fun little games to kind of, stimulate people wanting to share or whatever. So, and another nice thing that's happened throughout the list is, I got reacquainted with some old friends that I'm two of the people here that were good friends with two of my older sisters. And so we kind of, through high school, I'm talking, not gonna say, but a lot of years. I myself have been out 40 years, so I know they've been out a little longer than that. But it's been nice. We were able to go to dinner with Kathy and took some of her signs, and Donnie, we shared, through the years. So, it really is a family, and just, it's nice to come in here and see friendly faces, and now we can try and help them. So it's a small world. So.
Yeah. Question, do we have another microphone?
How long were you in the hospital before they let you out after the surgery?
How long, so how long was she in the hospital?
Tuesday. She went in on Tuesday till Friday. You came home Friday night. Or Saturday, maybe.
So I went into surgery Tuesday. I was supposed to get out Friday, and then so while you're in the hospital, you get your vitals done, your blood work, you get poked, basic things, all that. And right when I was about to leave, they just started a IV.
Is it one of the anti-rejection medicines that you get a big dump of? It takes 8 hours to go through. And so
Yeah, they didn't start that till 3, so we weren't getting out until 11. But when they wanted to do my vitals one last time, my blood pressure was really high, so they made me stay another night.
I said it was probably high because she was irritated that she had to stay. But it was very, very quick in and out, and the donor, of course, was in Tuesday, gone Wednesday, so.
Yeah, it's usually 24 to
48 hours.
48 hours, yeah. And I would say with most of you that have had transplants, it's usually 4 or 5 days.
I was in there 12, 13 days,
Were you?
post-transplant, yeah.
Okay.
I was in there longer than I wanted to be, but
Yeah.
that's because I had some complications.
Okay. Yeah. What else? What else? Yep, Megan, yeah, Avery's got a microphone for you.
Thank you. I'm curious, like, when you get home from the hospital, what kind of like ports or like connections or things like that do you actually like have when you're at home? Like, I was reading about, I think there's, I totally forget what they're called, but is there any kind of like a tube or anything like that that's like when you're home?
No, she had nothing.
Okay.
Nothing until she got the nephrostomy tube, and then, you know, that was a whole different story, but no, just, I mean, she hardly had any medications other than the couple anti-rejection medicines. You know, for her, they're like, wow, you've only got 4 pills, you're great. So, but yeah, nothing, unless you have some complications, I'm sure there's other issues, but,
Okay, so there's no
Yeah.
port kind of thing. And then
no.
my other question was like, I think it depends, like sometimes people get some staple, kind of closure, and sometimes maybe it's like a T.
You wanna talk about that?
It sounds like you've got a story to tell.
Well, I got told that I was supposed to have staples, and that like scared the crap out of me because I don't want staples pulled for me. And then after a while, they kept checking it because when I got home, I looked at it and I did not like it, but it looked like one of the staples like broke, in my opinion, because it was like a straight line, but at the very top it was like a gap this big, like that it looked like it opened a little bit, and I could stick my little pinky in there, so that tells you anything. Like my little tiny pinky I could fit. But then when we went back and asked about that, they were like, well, we can't do anything about it because you cause an infection. And then I asked, do we have staples? They're like, no, you got stitches. So like,
Yeah.
well, you could have told me that. The whole time we thought I had staples. But apparently they wanted me to have stitches instead.
Yeah, it's fixable.
What else? What else do people have questions about? What, okay, so Jeannie, what did you, like, there had to have been days where, like, Alina just was feeling really bad or just had no energy, or like, what did you do as, like, the kidney donor champion, like, to say, we gotta keep going? Like, do you have any
Well,
tips,
you know,
tricks?
The biggest thing was you don't have an alternative, this is what we have to do. So, you know, I had to be kind of blunt with her, you
Yeah.
know. A lot of it is just, you know, you're feeling down, you know, you're ready to, especially, you know, it doesn't matter what age you are, but, you know, she was young and she wanted to be, you know, she didn't want to be tied down to, you know, waiting and not being able to do all the things she wanted to do. So, you know, I just kind of had to tell her, you know, you don't have a choice, this is what we have to do, and you have your whole life ahead of you, you know. Once this is over, you're gonna be fine, you know, so, yeah, she has a long-term boyfriend who was very helpful. He always tried to, you know, build her up as well, and he was great at the hospital, and
I don't remember that.
so, you know, she did have, you know, have him for support too. So, you know, it's just one day you'll be down, and the next day, you know, you're like, okay, let's go do this. You know, she would go with me, and we'd put up flyers at every coffee house, and you know, just, you know, ups and downs. Like what? Oh, yeah. So she agreed to be a bridesmaid while she was still in the hospital under anesthesia. Like, did I really say I would do that?
I accidentally apparently answered my phone, which I shouldn't have, and said like, I'd be honored to be a bridesmaid. Like, I can't believe you asked me. And then my dad said, you agreed? I said, what did I agree to? So now I'm a bridesmaid in May, which I am excited for, but I did not realize I said yes. And I texted people things I didn't think I'd text.
Okay, so maybe don't have your phone.
Don't, so the one thing is, leave your phone with a responsible adult that is not loopy in the head.
So your boyfriend asked you to marry him, and you just.
I probably could have said yeah. I would have said yes either way, but yeah.
That's great. guys sharing, because I love hearing the different perspectives, right? Just from, I think it's, and I think Jeannie hit like key on this. I remember one of the things that really struck me, a couple days before my dad got his kidney, I had met one person, at that time, there was one other person I had met that she had 3 daughters that had all had kidney transplants. And I met her in a Bible study I was in. And I remember the night before surgery, she texted me and she said, tomorrow is day 1 of the next part of this journey.
Yep.
And I was like, well, I thought we were done. Like, you know what I mean? It was just like, because this was all so new to me. And that's one thing that has really resonated with me, and I think you
Yes,
shared that, right? And
yeah.
it's just that, you know, there's just more steps, and
Yeah.
you just don't, you know, but you gotta, you know, I always say, like, the first part of that journey is you get through all that testing, you get on the transplant list. Yay, we celebrate, like, big accomplishment. Next is, we gotta get that donor, right? Yay, big accomplishment, and then, yes, you're off dialysis and you start living your life, but there's still gonna be, you know, just adjustments and things like that, especially in that first year, right? And I mean, there are a couple of you sitting in here that are under a year, and it's, you know, you go, and I just today went to my dad's appointment with him to see the nephrologist, and it's like, here we are, almost 8 years out, and okay, how's this medicine doing? How's this doing? You know, and so it's just, that really stuck with me, and I think what you're gonna find is that a lot of your friends in the general public, I mean, people said to me, oh my gosh, you guys are done. And I'm like, done?
Are you kidding?
I don't think we are after we've been at clinic, like
Oh my
at 6 a.m. in the
gosh,
morning,
I
right?
know.
But you do,
I
those
was
things
not
do
prepared.
fade, and you do, like, you're over the big humps now, and it's like, now you can start to look towards.
You're new normal. You're new.
It is a new normal.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
It's kind of different than before because, I mean, you're up really early taking your anti-rejection drugs,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, true, yeah.
I mean, it's a new normal.
It's
Yeah.
a new normal,
Yeah.
yeah. There is no cure, right? 2
Right.
treatments, dialysis or transplant, and I mean, hands down, transplant is the better treatment, right? Hands down. And so, but they both are gonna, you know, everything is gonna come with it being, there's still gonna be some of those ups and downs. So I think it's fair, I think we need to talk about those things, right? To make, so that we just,
It's like not to scare people.
No.
You know, and what happens with her or what happens with other people.
right?
Doesn't mean that's gonna happen to you, but you know, it's not like, phew, that's all good, you know, you still have to get through hurdles. Nobody prepared me for clinic. Long,
Yeah.
long clinic days. And I don't know about you, don't you, Big Christ? The temperature is either like -4 or 104, depending on what room they put you in. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's nothing to prepare you. A lot of times, I mean, if you're a woman in this room and you've had a baby, like sometimes they'll say it's kind of like that, right? Like, I gotta get to delivery date and I'm scared to have this baby, and then you have this baby, and then 2 days later, they're like, by the way, you have to take this baby home, and you're like, what? What do I do now, right? It's kind of, nobody really tells you, like, after the baby comes, what happens now for the next 70 years, you know? So, yeah, so it's, I mean, similar.
Yeah,
So,
oh,
I mean,
yeah.
there's, yeah, parts of that that are similar, but yeah, so, well, it's fantastic, oh, yeah.
We have a.
What else do we need to know about that clinic?
Oh, what else do we need to know about the clinic?
Well, now we're in Christ, so I don't know, you know, the temperature, you definitely gotta know the temperature.
Layer.
Yeah, they have good snacks and drinks, but you're there a long time. You know, you go in 6:45, everybody's waiting in this like hallway to get into a room. Sometimes you don't get into a room. We like have been like travelers, they call us, so they'd stick us in the dialysis room in the corner.
Or just put us in a hallway.
Last week we were in the hallway. I mean, there's that, they had gotten a lot of new kidneys, so you know, that is good news, and they said, it's good that you're a trailer, because that means you're healthier than some of the others
Right.
who need to get into a room, but you're there a long time, so you're there, they come around, do your vitals, take your blood, your urine, and then you pretty much are sitting there waiting. So then they'll wait.
We've been done one time at 9:30 and gone home, and sometimes we're there till 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right. So, I mean, you're waiting for your results so that the doctor and the nurses can come in and, you know, they'll look at your site, make sure everything's fine with that, change your medicine if, you know, they adjust almost every day for the first 2 or 3 weeks.
How often are you going now?
So
Every 2 weeks,
Every 2 weeks?
but like, when I'm not going, I gotta go get blood work. So like tomorrow, I gotta go before by 7 o'clock medicine, I gotta wake up and go to the Christ Hospital early and get it done.
But she could go to the one that's like 5 minutes
Yeah.
from our house, and then they'll call if they wanna make an adjustment. So, at least you're not having to go down, But at first it was 3 days a week, when it was 2 days, and then, now it's every other week. So,
It stretches out.
yeah.
But the thing is, like, those days they're hard, but you wouldn't want it any other way.
Right.
Because they can so quickly, like, stay on top of, right? And I see all the nodding
And
heads, like,
that's
if
exactly what.
something, right, I'm telling you what, I think we'd be, all of us in this room would be more nervous if it was like, we don't wanna see you for 2 months. I mean, I'd be like, what?
Really?
Wait,
Right.
what could happen in 2 months, right?
I mean, that was how they.
That's kind of, after the nephrostomy too, they were like, we won't see you for another 3 weeks, and like,
You're probably panicked.
Yeah.
we were looking at each other, we're like, I don't think that's right, cause my number's been way up, like,
Yeah.
one time my creatinine this was like right before Thanksgiving, it was the Wednesday before, this is when I got my nephrostomy too. It was like on Friday of that last week, it was like 1.7, which was kind of normal at the time for me, and then still higher than usual, but then on Wednesday it shot up to 3.5.
That's when, and then,
So,
that's where the nurses, and Becky and Megan were like, something's not right, send her down, for labs, send her down for CAT
ultrasounds,
scans.
CAT scans.
And so you do, like you said.
It's hard, but you
necessary.
appreciate it
Yes.
because you've worked really hard to
Right.
get this kidney, and so have they.
Exactly,
Right,
yeah.
and so they wanna stay on top of,
Yeah.
so they can catch things, cause imagine if they hadn't,
Right, it would have damaged.
it might have
the
been too
kidney.
late.
Yeah, so.
I mean, I was, just saying to my group when we were out there, when I first went for my ultrasound, I looked at my kidney, the new one, and I was like, just cause I wanted to look at it, like, who doesn't wanna look at your own kidney? I mean, come on.
Yeah, the donor
The
had to
donor
take a
is,
picture.
yeah, the donor I have, he's 6'5", so, and I'm 4'11", if that tells you anything. And when I looked at my ultrasound, I was like, wow, like, look at this kidney, it's huge. And she was like,
Yeah,
I don't think that's supposed to be right.
I'm supposed to not be that
It's
big.
not supposed to be this big, so let's go, wait here, let me go get the other, like a professional above her, and she's like, yeah, this isn't right, you gotta go get more testing, I'm like, oh, god, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, it is a necessary thing you gotta go
Yeah.
through, but just bring a book, bring a fan.
And a snack.
They have good snacks, they always had snacks but.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for
Thank you
sharing.
all, yeah.
Thank you so much. And they'll be milling around at the table. They'll be milling around at the table, so grab them if you wanna ask another question. But really, I appreciate both of you guys for sharing. Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.
We're thrilled to have you back. Okay, so you don't have to move now because we already kind of divided out into our 2 different areas. So this is your time for the next like 20-ish minutes, 25 minutes in our circles just to talk, share. You've got somebody, I forgot to say at the beginning, if you see somebody with a blue shirt on that says Kidney Crew, there's somebody at each of the tables, and Pam doesn't have, do I need to bring you a blue shirt?
No, I have.
Oh, okay, all right, I just wanna make sure I don't forget. But there's an off-the-list person at every table just to kind of, again, help just facilitate, answer questions, and if you walked in tonight and you're like, I just don't feel like talking, that's okay. But you're still here to connect and maybe be able to hear somebody else share something so that we don't want you to leave ever feeling like you're alone. So this is your time. And if you need to talk to myself or Lori or Avery or Amy, grab us during this time as well. And then in about 20-ish, a little over that minutes, we'll kind of just gather up for our closing. All right, so go for it.
Hi.